Hi, this is AJ, and welcome to the Movie Health Podcast. We talk about movies and mental health. In this episode, Kathryn Guestre talks with Samara Lane about her favourite movies, TV shows, and tips for mental health. Enjoy! The Movie Health Podcast is proudly supported by TellyMoods by eClapper Project Inc. TellyMoods is a mobile application that recommends which movies and TV series to watch by matching the user's mood and the real-time offer of all streaming platforms. Download TellyMoods today.
Hi everyone, this is Kathryn. Today we speak to Samara. Samara is an intuitive business and leadership coach and also specializes in helping people heal their anxiety in relationships. Welcome, Samara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to interview you for our podcast. We've worked together before, and I guess I reached out to you and I just, was curious if you wanted to be asked about movies and mental health. So just going right off the bat, you mentioned that Minority Report is one of your favorite films. So like in terms of that movie, I know it was made in 2002. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, and it stars Tom Cruise. It's a science fiction action film. And it's had many nominations like, best cinematography, best director, sound design, and even the score. I'm just really curious what drew you to it and what makes it special for you.
That's a great question. I think I was like a teenager when I saw it. And I think I saw it in the theater. And I've seen it a few times since. That genre of movies I seem to be drawn to for whatever reason. I find them really fascinating and fun. And partly, like I told you, I was like, what is my favorite movie? I like so many. I can't choose. That movie just kept like flashing in my mind. I was like, I'm just going to trust that we're going to talk about Minority Report. It seems so random. I love the movie. And I think what really, a few things stick out to me around it. I think it has messages obviously around, do we really have free will? Do we really get to choose our fate, or is it predestined? And if we knew our fate, what it would be, would we make a different choice? It's easy to say yes, but you never know until you're kind of in it. And even just like the trauma that the main character, that Tom Cruise's character, has gone through, that like informs a lot of how he's lived his life, like the loss and trauma he's experienced. For some reason, that just that always stuck with me. It was very impactful to think of like a parent losing their kid in the way that he did, right? Really, really traumatic and tragic. And I don't know that I don't get tired of the movie. I think it's really fascinating and really well done, really fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. So I watched the movie last night and I really enjoyed it as well. It was a really long film and actually quite complex. And I think it touches on a lot of different themes like free will. And I think like you said, it's a very human story because it is about a father who loses his child, who also separates from his wife, who is in a leadership position, but then like questions authority because something comes up in his workplace that makes him realize that it's a flawed system. So it's like on different kind of levels, it's quite powerful. Is there any particular element of the film that that really resonates with you specifically?
Like for me personally, one thing that comes to mind is I've always spiritually found that to be a really interesting concept to get curious about. Is there free will? How much free will is there? How much is predestined or predetermined? And so like literally one of the tattoos on my arm has Loki on it. And in Norse mythology, Loki really symbolizes like the duality of good and evil, that we see in mankind, and also like the free will that we have to use and wield our power however we want, right? So that has just always been kind of fascinating for me. And something you just said that also struck a chord was like how he challenges, like he is in a leadership position, but challenges, Tom Cruise's character challenges leadership when he realizes the system is flawed. And that idea, it's kind of interesting to think about that idea of, even if the intentions were good, if the means to carry them out are flawed or evil in some way, then do the ends really justify the means, right? So there's a lot of like the duality and right and wrong, and
there's a lot of complexity to it, which I really like. I think you and I are very like philosophical, spiritual people, so of course we would be drawn to a movie like that. I find it really interesting that it's a science fiction thriller / drama. And you actually mention a TV show on Apple TV called Severance, which is also science fiction, thriller, and drama. So like, I'm curious, like, are you like, do you really like that particular genre generally in film? Or is like, did you just happen to like mention these two like randomly?
That's a great question. It's so funny because I didn't ever necessarily think that I did, but when you asked me like what movies or shows have left an impression on me, like those are two of my, like Severance is maybe my favorite TV series of all time. Not there's only one season out so far, but it's fascinating. I mean, Severance, so to answer your question, I think I'm really into that genre. Anything that, and they're both so well done. They're just really well done, right? I don't remember about Severance if it's been nominated or won awards, but Minority Report clearly was received a lot of positive acclaim and all of that. And it just, they're well done. The characters are so human and so relatable, right?
Yeah.
And Severance is really interesting. I think what's cool about both of them too is there's like a mystery to it. Like the whole time you're like, what is going on? I'm not really sure yet. That is an element that I absolutely love about those movies. When I was a little girl, I always wanted to be like an author. When I grew up, like I wanted to be a writer. Still do. I'm sure I will. But I would write I'd write like very morbid mystery books, like from the time I could write a sentence, like I wrote books about, someone getting eaten by a shark or disappearing, and like weird mystery books that, like my characters are backwards and I don't know how to spell or do grammar yet, but I've always had that little bit of an interest in the dark and the macabre. I think that's a part of my personality too.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I actually have that in common with you. Like ever since I was young, I've been like reading a lot of like crime fiction books, which was quite disturbing for people I knew. But I really love the crime and like the mystery aspect of it. And what you mentioned like kind of reminds me of like choose your own adventure books, because like it makes you like, I guess like really engaged, and it's like very interactive in the story as well. But yeah, that's really interesting. Like I didn't know that about you, and I've known you for like a few years now. We've worked together, and like, that's really awesome. And like with Severance, I haven't seen it myself, but I did watch the trailer and I read a bit about it, and I find it fascinating. So it's directed by Ben Stiller. And it stars Adam Scott, Patricia Arquette, John Turturro, and Christopher Walken, who are like awesome actors.
Yeah.
And I read a description about it online that said it explores the idea of disassociation and the way we suppress or bury parts of ourselves within us. That's so intriguing. Like I understand that it's trying to sever like personal life and professional life, I guess. Yeah. And I have no idea what happens, but I read that it's a dystopian drama, and someone described it as a sci-fi for the soul. So it's quite existential. And reading that, I was like, of course, Samara likes that. Like, of course. But are there any particular like characters or like, I don't know if you want to go into scenes or like themes that you want to
Yeah.
mention about this show. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. The character development is fabulous. What's really neat is it's not until like the last maybe couple episodes or maybe that you actually start learning what the personal lives are like for some of these characters. Some of them you really don't know anything about them until the very end of the first season. And so yeah, it definitely has a mystery element to it. It also has there's something very cultic about it, which I find fascinating because we won't probably go into it today, but I had like some spiritual trauma growing up. My family was a part of a cult, unbeknownst to us, obviously. No one is like, cool, join a cult. Sounds great. Let's sign me up. But it has a very cultic element to it. One person I know described Severance as if Stanley Kubrick made a version of The Office.
Oh, wow.
Analogy. It's just even cinematography and everything is really well done. For the characters, okay, so to come back to your question, the characters. I mean, the main character I relate to in some ways because or maybe like my younger self relates to because he's at this place in his life where he's been through some trauma and he's just like numbing it out with alcohol, and he knows that it's weird and maybe not the best ethical decision to have a job at a workplace where you literally don't know anything that happens, right? Like you forget all of your memories disappear as you walk out of the door of the workplace, but it's like he's choosing to cope. Right. And that's one way that he's coping with all the grief. Interesting. There's also grief and loss themes in this one as well in Severance. Yes. But he's not like trying to be a hero or anything special. He's just kind of like, going day to day. And the movie, I mean, as the story develops, he really starts being faced with who am I really and what is really important to me and what are my ethics and my values and where do I draw the line with boundaries. And I mean, I can think of lots of times in my life where that has come, right? Especially when we want it least, right? We're like, no, I'm just fine putting my head in the sand. That's how I used to be when I didn't have the right tools and experience to cope with anxiety or grief or loss or trauma or anything in my past. And life will put us in situations where we're then called to really decide anew, is this really what you want? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because look at this. Here's a new perspective, right? And so, yeah, it's so fascinating. It's such a well done show. The character development is amazing. I love it so much. Can't wait for season 2 someday, whenever it comes. Yeah.
Is it? Do you know if it's actually coming?
As far as I know, I mean, clearly I'm not the expert, but with the writer's strike and everything, I'm guessing that's why it's been delayed, like so many other things, understandably. But I would love to see it. I would love to see more. It really leaves you excited for more at the end of the season.
Nice. How many episodes are there in the first season?
It's Apple TV, so I would guess like 10, give or take. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And the thing is, like, I've heard of Severance, so like I do want to check it out for myself for sure. And like you weren't the first person to tell me about it. Like I have heard about it because I think people are really drawn to like that existential crisis and the themes that they portray. And it sounds like a very human film. Like a lot of people would find it relevant in so many aspects. So I think I would really like it. And the fact that you mentioned Stanley Kubrick, very like a lot of madness there, and I love that. So
it's a trip.
Yeah.
And Severance, like the first episode didn't completely hook me, and I wasn't like, yes, thirsty for more, but I was like, I'm interested. I'll watch more. And then you're very quickly, I got hooked. It was great.
Yeah.
There's my little pitch.
Of course. And the thing is, like, it sounds very thought provoking. Like it actually does. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And same with Minority Report. Like you're really, after you finish watching them, you're like, what just happened? Why? What? Let me really, and it really does make you think. I love that. I love a movie that does that.
Me too. And like my favorite genre, like, are psychological thrillers. So I feel like this would kind of, it goes very well with that too. And I just realized something. You and I kind of talked about it briefly before, but Last of Us, actually. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
I love that show.
Yeah, it just came to mind because I was like, hold on a second. Like you've commented on like stuff that I posted about it. So it's like, we can briefly talk about that too if you want, because there's a lot of like existential stuff there too. And there's grief and loss. There's so many things that are like similar actually.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is science fiction too. Oh my goodness. Like it's science fiction, thriller and drama. A very intense storyline about Joel and Ellie, and like based on a video game.
Yeah.
And I guess we're waiting for season 2 to come out as well.
Yeah.
I only heard about that. I guess a lot of critics and like audience members have like just hype on about it, that show. And then I decided to watch it. And I ended up loving it. Like it's similar to your experience, but I watched the first episode. I was like, I wasn't sure. Like I really wasn't. And then I just kept watching it. And then I realized, oh, okay. So this is why people go on about it.
Yeah.
Was there, anything in particular there that you want to speak to?
It's in the same vein. So no wonder it came to your mind just now as everything we're talking about, where you're right. There's grief and loss. It's a similar genre. It's very much about human relationships, and matters of the heart, even though it's not ostensibly about that, you realize it is. And then also there's a big question around ethics, what is the right thing to do in a really tricky situation that you'd hope you'd never find yourself in, but you think you know what you would do, but what would you really do? Because and so there's that same theme of right and wrong, and where dark and light meets, and how it can be so blurred. It was so good. I think you mentioned, was it episode 3?
Yeah.
That you talked about before? Was that the one that focuses on the couple?
Yes, it is.
It's their own little side story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That episode is life changing. It was so, so special. And really tug on my heartstrings. That was a really good one. And again, there were all kinds of, it was very sweet and unexpected. And there were also just interesting ideas posed there of how would you have a relationship in this odd experience of isolation, and how would you handle it when things got tough? Right.
Yeah.
We think 100%. We know what we do, but you never know.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think no one was expecting episode 3. I think the episode is called A Long, Long Time, which is based on a song that's featured in the episode. And it's really interesting that we get away from the perspective of just the 2 main characters, Joel and Ellie. And then, we actually, watch this relationship transpire. And I guess, I really love, what's his name? Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
He's such a great comedian, such a great actor. And I just this role kind of made me see him in a different light. I think I saw him as a real serious actor. And, the actor who plays alongside him, Murray Bartlett, I think his name is Australian. Because I looked him up and I was like, oh, that's nice. It's the first time I saw him. And I think they just had such great chemistry, and just the way that the relationship evolved in such a, like you said, in such a trying circumstance and context of the world, it was amazing, just every aspect of that episode. And I did a review on it, and I was saying how I found it was a real masterpiece in terms of storytelling. And and I think it's like an episode that can stand alone entirely, and you can just watch it, and it's very transformative, just seeing what happens at the end without putting any spoilers out there. But
Lots of tears.
Lots of tears, exactly. Yeah, and just it's an episode that makes you think and like it lingers with you, and it can't maybe in a way like challenges like questions like the way that we live life or like how we approach death, and like there's just so much to that. Yeah,
these are they are really spiritual, powerful concepts, and they do make us think deeply. And maybe that is why I am drawn to these kinds of films and shows, right? Is I just eat that stuff up. Anything that gets me thinking and really challenging maybe assumptions that I've had. I love it. So good. Yeah.
So good. And that reminds me, have you ever seen Black Summer? It's another TV show about zombies. It's like it's a dystopian drama as well. And I highly recommend it. It reminds me of The Last of Us. Like it's very intense and very human. So I think and compelling. So I think you'd like it.
I will have to check it out for sure. Right up my alley. Thank you.
Oh yeah. And just a bit more, about movies. Just generally, are you drawn to like Tom Cruise movies?
You know, Tom Cruise is kind of a controversial person, an actor, which speaking of cults, I don't know the person, obviously, so I don't have much opinion of him. But I do, my personal belief from my personal experience, and again, this is like a whole other talk, that anyone who's in Scientology is a victim of a cult. And so I see them as a victim who, whether they realize that or not, who I hope I wish recovery for them. I hope that they can find relief from that. But so I kind of always feel a little, I guess with that in my mind, I always feel like, like just like this personal heartache around Tom Cruise in movies and stuff like that, just him as a human, with all the love and respect in the world. But he is an amazing actor. This is a very long answer to your question, but I don't seek out Tom Cruise movies. I don't consider myself like a Tom Cruise fan. And I'm rarely disappointed when I see him in something. He's very, very talented and just seems like he has a lot of amazing ambitions, and how he chooses to play his roles and do his stunts and stuff is really, really interesting and admirable.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know if you've seen Top Gun or the latest Mission Impossible, but I think he's amazing. Like he has a very hard work ethic, and he's known for that. So yeah. And with just with directors, because obviously I'm really into that, having studied film and just loving films in general. But do you like Steven Spielberg movies? Like he's directed so many diverse films. Like I don't know if you've seen. Yeah.
Yes, I would say short answer. Yes, I do. He's a great director. He's directed a lot of really great films.
Yeah. And I would recommend The Fabelmans if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's actually his love letter to film. So it's like a biography, his own biography, of how he became a filmmaker. So it's kind of like a love letter to the film buff that he's always been. So
I love that. Thank you for that.
So, okay. So moving on from that, so I know that you work with a lot of people and you help a lot of people with like healing and transformation and evolution. And I'm just wondering if you have any particular tips for mental health that you want to share today.
Yeah, for mental health. First of all, I just want to say like a shout out to you, Kathryn, and the people that you work with. I am still new to like film therapy or movie therapy or just mental health and film in general. And I think it's an incredible method. And I just think you're amazing. I love the work that you're doing in the world. So yay, Kathryn. I'm your biggest fan.
Thank you so much.
And as far as mental health, gosh, where would I start? There are so many pieces to this. I mean, the thing that I am most known for in the mental health field is definitely anxiety. So maybe I'll speak to that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this will tie into the topics we've been talking about today or not, but a very interesting thing about anxiety that I think we can't talk about enough is that it is often, especially for anxiety, like OCD level anxiety or anxiety regarding relationships, any kind of relationship, romantic or otherwise, there is like anxiety, as one person said, is often like our brain trying to think its way through an emotional issue that really is something deeper than what it seems to be. Whenever I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety, I've learned to really stop and pause and notice if the problem wasn't really the problem, where might this actually be stemming from? And so since I guess have been talking so much today about, severance and disassociation and how do we deal with trauma and loss and grief and death and all these things, I would say if anyone is listening and does struggle with anxiety, that this is your loving reminder to get curious and shine a loving, compassionate light on your anxiety and start to notice, like if the theme or the content or like what we see on the like surface, like the face value of the anxiety, if that really isn't the root issue, what might this actually be about? Where might this really be stemming from? Because that's what really needs our healing and our love. And it's usually, honestly, has nothing to do with the thing that we're kind of freaking out about or worrying about. There's something deeper. And sometimes it's just our trust in life or in ourselves. Sometimes there is some like actual trauma or something from the past, but to start with that light of awareness from there, I mean, that's where I really start to heal.
Yeah. And that's so powerful because I think a lot of the time we do just automatically take things at face value and just kind of like believe the stories and like the narratives we have within our heads. Because like the fearful mind is such like it really does try to take over constantly, doesn't it? And that's something that you and I have worked together on. And I know you've helped countless people all over the world with like many different types of life issues. And I commend you for your work. Like I feel really honored to have worked with you and know you, and still be on your Facebook groups and like listen to your podcast because you have an amazing podcast.
Thank you.
And and I just want to thank you as well. Like I think so many people appreciate you, whether they tell you or not.
Thank you
for the work that you do. Yeah, because like you really help people to heal and to transform like their thinking, which I think ultimately is such a powerful skill and such a powerful tool that we all need as human beings. Because I think we take our thoughts way too seriously.
Yes.
All the time. So, and I can just think of like a recent example for me, just last night, and then just like taking a step back from it and observing that, and knowing, like it's not actually about the content, like you've said before, about like of our thoughts, but like what's actually the root issue and what's stemming from that. And most of the time, it is a wound or like a trauma from our past or something like that. Yeah.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important message because like, honestly, you're the first person who I like heard say that, like actually just explicitly say it that way. While, other times it might come off like really complex in like complicated ways. You know what I mean? Like through media or society or even through other professionals. But for you, it was like very clear and simple how you raise that. It's like, actually, that's so true. It's like, it's so relevant. Like it resonates with everyone, like no matter where you are in the world or what you're experiencing. Like that's, it's a very human thing.
I still get to remind myself of that sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this is that thing that I teach and I know to be true. Okay. Yeah, this applies to me right now. Got it. Let me dig a little deeper. What's really going on for me right now? It just never stops being helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes like, because I would call you like a mental health professional, and obviously like that's something I'm doing as a social worker providing therapy. like, do you find it hard to practice what you preach sometimes?
Everything is easier preached than practiced.
It's very true.
I'll say that. And so, but do I feel good about the level that I practice and implement what I preach? Yes. I feel like it is what I would expect from any human being.
Yeah.
Right. In my position, to me, it's honestly like sometimes it's the juiciest moments where I'm like, oh yes, I'm living it. This is a stretchy moment for me. What do I teach around this? What would I guide a client through? Great. I get to do that for myself right now. I also get to reach out for support because we all need it, including mental health professionals.
Mm-hmm.
We all need that support. And it just like, it makes my work even that much more fulfilling, right?
Mm-hmm.
To know what it's like on both sides of it. And, it's very humbling. And again, talking about like these movies and how they make us think and deepen our connection to like a deeper meaning and purpose in life. I mean, that's what inner work does for me. It's fascinating. Yeah. It opens me up in the best way. It's not easy in the moment to practice, but we can, and it's always worth it. The payoff is just life-changing, right?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And I know firsthand as well, like through working with you. And that's why I'm so grateful to, and like having seen the people I've seen as well, I think, that just raises again how important it is for mental health professionals to like seek their own support as well. And I think like that's not talked about enough either, that like we're also human and we also go through trying times.
Yeah.
And life is hard for us too. And it's like we also need to check ourselves and to have like mentorship or like some kind of coaching or even counseling or therapy ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want to put out there because I think that's so important for people to realize and for that not to be taboo or to feel like it's shameful or anything like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's what we're all here to remember, right? Is it's okay to be messy. It's okay to be having a human experience. It doesn't mean anything about who you truly are. It's just part of the human experience. So yeah, we're in it together. Yeah.
We are in it together. Exactly. And I guess it makes us more compassionate and like have more empathy towards each other because we're all kind of just going through our own stuff.
100%. Nailed it.
Yeah.
That's really what we're here to learn, right? Is greater and greater levels of compassion for ourselves and others. How do we do that? Through going through stuff. So
yes, exactly. From the human experience. So yeah, and I want to thank you for being an incredible role model. And thank you for today, for letting me interview you. And I'm talking about Severance, Minority Report, and The Last of Us. And it's amazing how they all ended up tying in together very well.
Yeah. So
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. No, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention or share?
No, that I would just say too for grief and maybe yes. So my answer is yes for things like grief, and loss, since that's also so much of a theme. I don't consider myself a specialist or an expert in those things. However, I have gone through a lot of them in my life at different stages, in different ways, at different times. And I think, like a beautiful message, even from those, maybe from those shows, but certainly from my life has been, again, if we can practice not putting our head in the sand and being really gentle and compassionate with ourselves and just like being in the now, being with the grief, letting the waves of grief wash over us, letting ourselves ugly cry when we need to, even if we're in the middle of the Target or whatever, like just let it come, let it flow. When we allow things to just be as they are and allow our emotions to come and go as they naturally want to, without, again, making it a mental thing up in our heads and just staying in our bodies and like in a somatic way, like really being there to feel and release the grief or whatever we're going through. It doesn't get stuck. It doesn't have to turn into anxiety. It doesn't have to become suppressed or something that we've disassociated from. It's something that we can move through and release, because that's what our emotions are designed to do. and the only way out is through. So I think that's one of the things I would mention based on what we've been talking about today. I think that's important.
Yeah. And it's not about burying or suppressing parts of ourselves. Like, it's a major theme in Severance. So we are not here to sever, but we're here to actually like feel everything and to really be in the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Samara.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
Thank you. It's been an honor as well. Thank you.